On this week's episode of Carving a Pumpkin, Janae is going to sit down with a very special guest to talk about acting.
I'm Sylvia Muchmore. I'm one of the executive producers for The Pumpkin Man, Demon of Fall, and on today's episode of Carving a Pumpkin, we're going to be talking a little bit about acting, and to do so, we've brought in a very special guest, the lead actress and my very own sister.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Muchmore, and I play Jenny Scott in Pumpkin Man, the Demon of Fall.
I've had the pleasure of having a front row seat to Sylvia's acting career since she first started in middle school. And when I say acting career, I mean she's been in plays, musical theater productions, primarily on stage with a live audience. So throughout this interview, we're going to learn what she's learned transitioning over to a short film for the first time without that live audience, as well as any tips she may have for acting. But to kick off this interview, I want to start with Sylvia. Can you please describe Jenny Scott for us?
Jenny Scott is a photographer. She does have an attraction to rustic, creepy things, but when she goes into the alpine pumpkin patch, she finds more than what she was looking for.
Without giving too much away, can you tell us what she found?
She finds the Demon of Fall, Kerbis.
Now, this isn't the first time that we've seen Jenny Scott in the Pumpkin Man series. We saw her a couple times in the original series that Ryan did back in college, but now that he's been able to reboot the Pumpkin Man, how does this new Jenny Scott differ from the old Jenny Scott?
This Jenny Scott is different from previous Jenny Scotts because she just has a little more substance to her in this film. You get to see more of her story before she passes. Am I giving away too much?
For those of you that have seen the original Pumpkin Man films, you may notice that there's a big difference between the Pumpkin Man originally and this rebooted version. So Sylvia, can you walk us through some of the changes that we made in an attempt to go from more of a slasher villain to an actual monster or demon?
In this Pumpkin Man film, the Pumpkin Man not only is the Pumpkin Man, but he's also Kerbis. He has a little bit more of an identity that we get to learn about because we learn about where he's from, and we get to learn a little bit more about his history, and the victims know a little bit more about his history, so I think it increases the intensity. Even though he's shorter, it's a lot more menacing and intimidating. And he's also right there at your height level, so it's like, whoa, right in your face. You see the creepy little jack-o'-lantern.
Were you actually scared?
Oh, there were a few times I was a little bit terrified. Just a few.
Sylvia, what was your biggest challenge transitioning from a theater environment to a short film environment?
Yeah, theater is where I've had all my training, but with short film, there's just so much to think about. Not looking at the camera a few times was hard for me when I was just kind of in my zone and the thought process of the character, and I'd be like, oh, dang it. It'd be right there. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't trying. It would just happen. That was new. Also, just trying to keep consistency between shots, making sure that I was still driving the whole time, because I don't want to start being overly scared in the very beginning and then I have nowhere to go. When you're on stage, you can keep control of that a lot more easily, I think, than in film, because you don't know what's going to be used. And also, one of the harder things with horror movies that I just didn't really think about before was that when you're acting in a horror film, you don't see what the audience is going to see in the editing and all of that. So you have to react so much more. And it's so much harder because you don't really know what you're reacting to. And it also makes the driving more difficult because you don't exactly know from one scene to the next how much more intense it gets. And keeping that consistent is a little bit more tricky.
How did you get in the zone or prepare for a role like Jenny Scott?
Well, it helped the first time when we were filming in the apartment after seeing Halloween for the first time and being absolutely creeped out by Michael Myers. The second time, I just kind of got a little more physical with it. I just kind of would tense up my body, and it would just kind of trigger all of those emotions with fear. So I guess psychological gestures, which is an acting method for the stage, also helped in film.
What was the worst part of working with Ryan?
The worst part of working with Ryan...
Don't shy away. I want to hear it.
It was a joy. I had fun, but I guess probably it'd be between the dog. I love Leona. I love the dog, but the dog on set, I think just every now and then it would take up a little bit more time. And you wouldn't want to run out of steam, especially since all of us are used to early rising schedules, and we're filming late at night, past my bedtime. That would probably be one of the worst. That or just, I think just having my hair get stuck in the neck. I didn't like that. Ripping it out. Just slowly ripping out my hair. And it's still a little sticky.
With the Kerbis Lullaby, there's a number of possibilities where this series could go. So Sylvia, looking forward, what would you like to see explored in the future?
I think it'd be really cool if Kerbis was pursuing someone through their joy, and their joy was music. Because sometimes people, when they play their music, it might match with their emotions. So they might be, I don't know. I think there's a lot you could do with that, maybe.
Since converting nautical films over to Southridge Films, we've only done 2 different short films. The Letters of Wailing Creek was our first one before we even filmed Pumpkin Man, Demon of Fall. What have we done differently to improve from The Letters of Wailing Creek into this new short film, The Pumpkin Man?
I think The Pumpkin Man, Demon of Fall improved from The Letters to Wailing Creek just because there was more of a story for the main character. And the ending was just a little bit more clear. While I'm artsy and I love, being able to interpret whatever you want, some audiences don't like that as much. So this just kind of gives it a little bit more of a closed final ending that's a little bit more clear-cut and dry. So I think that might have been an improvement, or maybe it was not. But I think I know a lot of people who don't like the open endings. So I think that was good, but I especially like the fact that there was just so much more of a story with a lot more history to the villain or monster or whatever you want to call it. Just because with the Goat Man, I know I had to watch it a couple times to notice a few more things. Not too many. I think I only saw it 3 times, but yeah, I think just with the Pumpkin Man, you get it a lot faster.
Do you think that we successfully captured the spirit of the holiday in this new short film?
Oh, I do think this film captured the spirit of the holiday. I think there's kind of that draw that Jenny has to the creepy stuff that I feel like a lot of people do have at some point in their life, whether they're a kid that way or they're a little bit older and they're like, whoa, there's a lot more to Halloween than just the treats. And then I think it does get that horror and that kind of your heart dropping and oh no, and the panic and the fast pulse. I think a lot of that comes through in this film.
Now that you have the first short film under your belt, is there any advice you have for yourself or someone else when it comes to acting?
I don't know. I think I would fix some of my vocal delivery a little bit in the beginning. I feel like there was a few spots where it was a little bit gargly, and that's just because I came off of a vocal injury that lasted for many months, and I'm still recovering. Obviously, this is not how I normally talk. My voice is usually a lot higher. But yeah, I would hopefully be able to fix that if we did this in the future.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure to have you this weekend, Sylvia, and a pleasure to have you on this episode of Carving a Pumpkin. For those of you watching who are interested in continuing to follow our progress on the feature-length film that we're working on and that we're super excited about, be sure to give us a subscribe below so that you can stay up to date on all of the things we're doing behind the scenes. And also go on over to Instagram and follow Pumpkin Man Film. You'll see some fun content over there as we continue to progress into hopefully production pretty soon, but we will see you on the next episode of Carving a Pumpkin.
Oh.